Oh, good morning. Wish I could start this over again. I've got a webcam that works awesome, and it doesn't make this look gray and give all this big space. But for some reason, when I turn this on, it dropped it. Like my hat. It's my $3 Colombian hat. I don't know, it looks kind of goofy when I wear it. So, don't like hats. Yes, Armenia's Pisa region. Okay, so today, going to be a little bit different tact. I'm going to be mostly talking about the news of the day for Colombia. But first, a couple things. The dating video, looks like I will be doing it Saturday the 7th at 6 p.m. Central Time in the U.S., Colombian time. I do need your RSVPs by Wednesday. The way this is going to work is it will have a link that I have to send you. It will not be open to the public. I'll send you the link. It'll be unlisted. And when I'm done with the video, it won't be, you won't be able to find it in the library. So the time that we spend on that video live, that'll be it. It has nothing to do, it's not going to be anything seedy or untoward. If you're looking for, sex pad information, anything along those lines, you won't find it there, and you'll probably find it rather boring. But if you're actually interested in meeting people, expand circle of friends, possibly even finding a girlfriend, it'll be perfect for you. And again, I'll be talking about the coffee region. It won't be talking about Medellin. There are differences. It's not to say that you won't find some things useful, but it is actually a quite different scene between one and the other. And so if you're Pereira or Manizales or Armenia, you're going to find it much, much more useful. In Medellin, we'll say 50% useful. So the RSVP, you need to send it to my email. You can find that information in the box below this video, or all videos. It's all down there. Any contributions for that video will go through either Google Pay or GoFundMe. It won't be like these live where people click on the $ and send something off. I don't know. I assume that's going to be disabled, so it won't be that way. It will be moderated, so if there's any trolls out there that want to make, inappropriate jokes or whatever, you'll just get banned from the video. And the one thing I'm going to ask on those is when you ask a question, just put 4 question marks before you type the question. It'll help me find it. I've mentioned before, this is really small print. I don't know why it's like that. It is the way it is. One day if I can, get some different software, that can change. But for now, I got to deal with what YouTube gives me. And in order to read the comment, I have to do this. Which is probably annoying for you, is certainly annoying for me. I can't just glance down at it and see the comment and read it. So, okay. I met with a gringo friend. He's become a friend, Justin, if you're watching. He's been here for a couple months on a fact-finding mission, fact-finding tour. I believe he's gone to a few places around here, but he seems to be quite happy and planning on settling in here in Armenia. And he has an assistant here helps him with various things. He's got a vision issue, and so she helps him. You know, if it gets dark, it's a little harder to, you know, to see. So she helps him with different things like that. So I met up with her, and she's an English major, and she has a few friends that are English majors, and I've interviewed a few like that in the past. But she has interest in possibly doing, not formally, but tours. And where this comes from is I'm getting more and more things like my Skype calls and more people that want to meet up when they come down to Colombia from watching these videos. And it makes perfect sense. And it's very useful to go to a place you're not familiar with, or you've just never been there at all, and have somebody kind of guide you for a day or two. Here's where things are. Here's the layout. Here's what to look for, what not to look for. That's a great area. It's a very useful thing. And you can discover that on your own, but it can take a few weeks. You can step in a few mud holes on the way. This is just a way to, you know, get off on the right foot and compress that learning curve down to a day or two. And so I met with them, and she has some interest in possibly doing this. So for you guys that are looking for that, I do it sometimes when I have time, but where that may turn out to be an advantage for you to have somebody, if I'm busy, and sometimes there's 2 or 3 requests all at the same dates, you know, I can create this little network of, you know, it's not their job, but hey, are you going to be available Wednesday for, you know, 7 hours to help somebody such and such? Yeah, I can do that. Or no, I can't, but my friend, she can do it. So I think it's going to be very useful. So I was glad to meet her. I'm waiting for her to send me her contact information. There was also a friend of his. I don't recall how they actually met, but this guy is involved in an eco business, and he does bird watching tours. And it's kind of a big deal. He actually operates off a pretty substantial government grant, and it's a going concern, viable business, being done very well. And I'm going to be interviewing him possibly next week. The week after, I'll be in Manizales, helping somebody, just as I explained, walking them through Manizales. I haven't been there in a while, kind of miss it. So, you know, I jumped on that one, looking forward to it. That I'll be up there for 2-3 days, maybe. I don't really know for sure. So I'm going to try to do the interview next week, and I think I think you're going to find it pretty interesting. And he also speaks English. What else we got? I do the Skype calls for information, and I did a couple this week. It seems like they're becoming more of a regular thing for me. I find everybody that I've done a call with very happy with the call. Sometimes they run about an hour. I had one, I think, that went as long as 3 hours. Basically, I'll stay on until your questions are done, within reason, and as long as the questions have meaning. You know, why is the sky blue? Well, okay, let's get to the big news of the day. It seemed like a couple days ago, it just bust out all over the world about the FARC has basically resumed or redeclared their war in Colombia. And I have a few viewers that are in a bit of a panic. What is this going to mean? And I probably should do an entire history of this video for those history buffs or those who want to know. Am I the ultimate expert on this? No, but I do read a lot when I have curiosity about a topic. I read a lot. I've lived some of this a couple decades ago. So what I'm about to give you is generally true, although maybe there's a detail here or there that I don't recall, the best way, but this is going to paint the picture for you. Thank you, Sugar Skull. Appreciate the support. Colombia has a long history of turmoil. Actually, it goes back to World War II. For about a decade or so, it was a time period called the violence, Valencia. And that kind of petered away. Another decade went by. And then what happened was you had Castro in Cuba, and then Che Guevara went off and did his thing. And here in Colombia, you had a group that said, we're going to do the same thing. And they called them the Revolutionary Army of the Republic, Armed Forces of the Republic, FARC. They're the infamous FARC. And they began in 1964. It was right around the time of Cuba. And they were supposedly the socialist Marxist movement that Castro did, that Chavez later did, and Maduro in Venezuela, Morales in Bolivia. It was the movement here in Colombia. But the problem was here in Colombia, first of all, people are very, very strong. They're not, it takes an awful lot to intimidate them as a culture. And they just weren't going to have it. They've got a constitutional republic here. And they like the constitutional republic. Plus, I think it may have also, helped Colombia in that Castro had actually been entrenched for a couple years, and you could see from the outside, him exterminating his, dissenters, even people that came up in his own group he had killed off, because it was essentially just a power grab. All these Marxist socialist movements really are just power grabs. And that's why they always fizzle. That's why they always go bad. So you had that here in Colombia, and in its heyday, at its peak. And I can't find any actual, for sure this is the number, which is understandable. But they probably had somewhere between 30 and 40,000 people as part of their group at a high point. Now, as time went on, that dwindled because they were essentially at war with the government of Colombia, and the United States helped in that. Kept them armed to be able to defend themselves, and so the FARC just kind of kept dwindling and dwindling. There was a time when they operated throughout the country. There was a time back a couple decades when I was living in Pereira that the FARC were active in this region. Now it was pretty much held to the countryside, but there were a lot of kidnapping issues in Colombia. They weren't really socialists. What they were was criminals, and they were involved in drugs and kidnapping for ransom. They would take over small villages out in the middle of nowhere and implement slave labor, get them to grow coca crops or whatever criminal activity they were involved in. It was a horrible thing. And there was a time when they really controlled most of Medellin. You couldn't go from barrio to barrio at night, and you would have to pay a tax to leave or enter various barrios. So we get to 2002, and the president Uribe, Alvaro Uribe, was elected, and he was elected on a very strong anti-FARC hard line. We've been dealing with this for decades, and we're not going to put up with it anymore. And what he did was he mobilized the national police and the armed forces and went really on an all-out assault. There was a time when actually military helicopters were hovering over Medellin with troops rappelling out of them, going house by house, block by block, capturing or killing these criminals. And this went on throughout the country. It went on through a number of years. And what happened was you had people run away from it. You had a lot of people get killed. And so the numbers of the FARC kept dwindling and dwindling. And supposedly around those years after the assault, dwindled down to 5, maybe 7,000 people. Then a president comes along, Santos, the gambler, the last one. I'll try to keep politics out of this. I wasn't a big fan, but he wanted to basically do a Neville Chamberlain. He wanted to appease. He won the Nobel Peace Prize for talking to the FARC, and ironically, the peace talks took place in Havana, Cuba. And there was, there was give and give. There wasn't so much take. But ultimately, a peace plan was devised where they would lay down their arms and no longer identify as the FARC, as this group. And they would receive amnesty. And as a matter of fact, in the last presidential election, one of the FARC tried to run for president, was soundly defeated. But that's how things had changed through this agreement. Now, once this agreement was signed, it was put up for a referendum for the people of Colombia to approve of this, and they didn't. The referendum lost, but Santos and his political operatives in the Congress passed it anyway. So this peace agreement was really against the will of the majority of the people in Colombia. Now, you have a lot of people that misunderstand in Colombia, that misunderstand what the FARC were, and they see them like the people of Venezuela saw Chavez and his socialist ideas and Maduro for a little while as being this good thing. They're going to help the poor, and they're for the people, and we're going to have all this free stuff, and particularly younger people, because that's being taught in universities here, just like in the US and in various places in the world. Academia loves socialism. So, this was the environment that this was around, that, most people had, pretty much everybody in Colombia had some history with the FARC. The older they were, the more history they were. My favorite, drop pesos in a cup here, the only one I do actually, is a guy that lost his leg in those battles. He's an old guy now. He sits down in front of the movie star office a few blocks from me, and I have to go by him fairly often. Coins in the cup. There's so many people that go around here with amputations or scars that were from those times, and they were the worst of times. And you could say it goes back 80 years, back from World War II, but with the FARC, it goes back 40, 50 years. Well, in the 60s, so you figure it out. So, hold on. So, this was the environment up until recently. This peace agreement was passed in 2016, and with much of the country against it, but the FARC have some supporters because of really the lack of understanding of who and what they are. If you believe that they're a socialist movement, then they've fooled you also. They are a criminal activity. But the agreement was signed, and this all happened. Now, it's interesting because, as you know, I lived in Ecuador for 3 years, and shortly before I came here, there was a lot of talk in Ecuador about Colombia exporting its narco trafficking into Ecuador, which is so untrue because Ecuador has its own, and they are associated with Colombia, and they're associated with Bolivia, and they're actually mostly run by the Mexican cartels. And so all of these criminals have banded together. Now, when the FARC was essentially disbanded, the criminal activities continued with many of them. Some said, you know, they're just tired, they're weary, they're wounded, they just want to go back to their families, they're tired of slogging their life through the jungle, and they had had enough. And it's one of the reasons the FARC came to the table is, you know, losing their people. So what happened with the FARC is they really gravitated to the south of Colombia, primarily the southwest, which if you look at a map, there's not much there. And they've been doing their criminal activity there, and they've been trying to grow in strength. Right now, again, nobody knows for sure, but they think it's somewhere around 2,000 people are in this FARC. And there's another group that they're allied with, ELN, and I'm not really talking about them today, but they're in the north of Colombia, and they've been growing. They've been making some news because they're operating out of Venezuela, because Venezuela is a failed state. There's nothing there for preventing them, so they can, you know, jump over the border and build up their camps and do their criminal activities, because that's really what they're about. It's just crime. It's like militarized mafia. And so that's been the state of the situation. So a couple days ago, was Marquez, I think his name is, he announced to the world, and it was in the world press, that the FARC is resuming its socialist movement and fight for the people and blah, blah, blah. And consequently, you know, I get the messages about, oh my God, what's happening here? What's the effect going to be? And so today I'm going to give you my opinion on it. My opinion prior to today, before what happened today, which I'll mention you may not know, my opinion is that it doesn't change anything. They never went away. They used this time to try to restructure. They built money from their criminal activity. They've got funds that they can now, you know, hire people. A lot of people that were in the FARC were actually from villages that they'd captured, and they just kind of forced, you know, military age men, you know, to fight with them, to work for them, at risk of losing their family. So, you know, now they want to rebuild that. But I think, personally, I think it was a big miscalculation, because the president that was elected in this last election, Duque, is actually a protege from Uribe, and he has a lot of these same beliefs. One of the reasons he was elected was he wanted to change this peace agreement because of all these sweetheart deals that were bad for Colombia. There's a lot of resentment because the majority of people did not approve of this peace deal. They saw it for what it was. Now, what happened today? Well, what happened today were 9 FARC were killed in the south by a Colombian airplane dropping a bomb on a camp that they knew was there. A few days ago, these weren't FARC, they were just narco criminals, but they've picked their FARC flag back up and they're calling themselves FARC. I think they're almost doing this government and the people of Colombia a favor by, instead of being this individual fading into the woodwork, they've put a name and a face to it again. They have declared this war to resume, and it really gives the opportunity to maybe finish them off once in a while, once and for all. Now, that may not sound like a good thing for you, but when you have these operations with criminal activities in a country like Colombia that has so many places that are the wild, there are so many places in Colombia no human has ever seen, no human has ever set foot in. And this is where they tried to operate, in that southwest area, through the Amazon, the ELN, along the border, which borders with the Venezuelan area that is also just kind of a no man's land. You know, people don't live there too much. So I think this was inevitable. And personally, I don't see it as a bad thing. It's also taking place far away from where we're living, but it has been there. It's kind of like, you know, let's compare it in the United States to the Crips and the Bloods. They're very strong. They exist. They own territory. If you cross them, you're dead. They're a criminal activity. But does most of the United States have any impact or effect by them? Not really. Not really, because they're isolated to various conclaves. They have grown in the United States, but the United States has no stomach for an all-out war. I mean, right now they're having trouble mustering the willpower to fight groups like MS-13, for example, out of Central America. So Colombia doesn't want to return to those violent days, but those violent days never left. It just kind of went under the radar, and things were still there, and they were still festering. So this, it could almost be seen as an opportunity to maybe end this once and for all. That's my take on it. I don't see any short-term danger from this, and personally, I really don't see any long-term danger. One of the upsides is, for years, the government of Colombia was under siege and had to fight on all battles. The narco king starts with a P, the name we won't mention, and all of the drug cartels that were here, and the ELN, and the FARC. They were fighting when these were all much stronger, funded by billions of dollars, and bombs would go off and political assassinations, and I mean, it was a horrible time. But in the last few decades, this government really began with Uribe. He's one of my heroes of Colombia. The government has been able to stabilize and grow stronger and stronger and stronger. They've been able to put together an extremely well-trained military and national police and set up responses for things like this. And as you travel through Colombia now, you see military enclaves everywhere. Pretty much every city, town you're going to go through, there's some post that's, got his finger on the pulse. Now, can bribery and corruption take place? Yeah, I'm sure it does, but nothing to the extent like it once was. They've lost power, and Colombia government has gained power, and the people are behind them. So, this may be the death throes, and I think there's a reason that they came out and announced that, we're back. I think it was kind of a desperation move to keep themselves relevant. But it's neither here nor there. That's my take on it. I am not the least bit worried about it. But hey, whenever you go anywhere outside of the United States, you always want to have your plan B anyway. If something happens, you want to prepare. So if you're living here now and you're worried about things like that, use this as an opportunity to think about, what if something did happen? What if, who knows? Let's say Venezuela invaded Colombia and there was an all-out war, and God knows, I mean, just think of whatever scenario. What would you do? What would be your plan to leave? Where would you go? How would you fund it? So now's the time to think about that. Not because of this, but because you already should have thought about that. Okay, so last thing. Nope, we're at half hour. This last thing is quick. I wish that I could show video on here. One day I'll have some software where I can. But I've discovered something, and I can't believe that I never knew this. With having been here for so long and trying so many things, I have never had a tamal in Colombia. I always assumed they were like you get in the US or Mexico or even in Ecuador. And they're not. I ordered up this tamal. A friend was here. She was hungry. And said, what do you want? She said, tamal. I go, oh, okay, whatever. Wasn't that hungry anyway. So I order it up. They're a couple dollars each, and it came. And first of all, it was humongous. It was just gigantic. The masa surrounding it was really tasty. It's wrapped in banana leaf. It was really tasty. I'm not sure what they do with it. I think it's got chicken broth or something in it. It was really good. But inside there was a chicken drumstick. There was this pork rib. There was half an egg. There were some vegetables in there. It was like this meal that was just covered in this very savory corn flour. Hard for me to describe, but it was a shock that I'd never tried it. I just assumed that it was like others that I'd eaten, and it was not. So I'm gonna highly recommend, if you've never tried a big tamal, that you give it a try. I guess they say you learn something new every day. Well, I learned something new, and I've had two since then. Quite good, unbelievably cheap, very filling. I've yet to finish one. Now, I think they come in different sizes, like small, medium, and large. Uh, the one I ordered was super because we're ordering it for like a dinner, and that's what I've ordered since then. So it's good for a dinner, and then it's good for a snack after that. So that's all I got for today. I hope that gives you some perspective on some of the news that you've probably heard about. And does this give you pause about coming to Colombia? If you got plans to come here, whether a trip or move, I wouldn't change it at all, because the truth is nothing really had changed. So let's see if we got any questions. If you got questions, now's the time to ask. I'll answer whatever's there, and then we'll wrap up for the day. Okay. Any thoughts on the rainforest fires in Brazil? Um, I don't really. I began to look into it just because I'm a curious person and I like to read. And what's the big deal of these? Why is this happening? Were they really set intentionally? Was really poor Brazilians that wanted to clear land that legally you couldn't clear, and they set fires. And I don't know, and I don't really have a lot of opinion. I mean, it's horrible, it sucks. On the other hand, in nature, these things happen anyway. It's some are bigger than others. This is on a grand scale, but as we see everywhere in the world, when you have these huge calamities, give it a couple years, everything comes back. I mean, go to Mount St. Helens and look around that volcano, or go to places that had huge forest fires a couple years ago in the United States and look at them today. It's renewed, it's refreshed. You have all this new growth, all the animals come back. I don't think it's anything different in Brazil. Now, because there's so much undiscovered country and unfound animals and plants, it will be a damn shame if something goes by the wayside and we never even knew it existed. I mean, nobody wants to see that, but fires are fires, and if it can start by lightning, and you can't prevent these things from ever happening. And the sooner they get it put out, the better. I guess the U.S. offered some help. Russia offered some help, which I thought was strange, because they're having these massive forest fires in Russia that they haven't been able to handle up around Siberia. Now, maybe, Russia just wants to, well, the U.S. offered, so we're going to offer to look. I don't know. There's probably politics. But the point is, it has the attention of everywhere in the world. There are offers from all over the world. The military of Brazil is involved, trying to, get these things in hand, and they will. But it doesn't affect Colombia directly. And, nobody's happy to see it. It sucks. But, these things happen. Volcanoes go off, forest fires start, earthquakes happen. But the earth always recovers and regenerates. How many people have RSVP'd for the upcoming video? I believe right now I've got 9. I put a post on this YouTube channel, and I got quite a few of them right after I put that post. And I put that post, I think, yesterday or maybe the night before. So I decided to go ahead with this. I finished my work on it. I've got 10 pages of outline for this topic for you. I'm guessing it might even go a couple hours, but I put a lot of work into it. I think you're going to find it really valuable and interesting. Even though I don't have 30 yet, I'm assuming that after I mention it here on this video today, more people see that note that I put on this channel. I think we'll probably reach the 30 that I feel that we should have, maybe even more. I think there's some people that were worried that it's going to be one of these, sex pet for hire, deals. I got kind of a nasty message about that. And it really has nothing, take your mind out of the gutter, has nothing about that. It's about as wholesome as you can get on the topic. Just because we're in Colombia doesn't mean that somebody doesn't want. How do I meet a girl in Colombia? I want to, I'm moving here, I'm alone, and I don't want to live alone forever, and I want to have a girlfriend, for example. And how do I go about that? Because of the language difference, maybe you don't even speak the language, or what's the difference of attitudes and culture, and what kind of mistakes can I make, and how do they see who I am? And in the United States, maybe I didn't have so much luck, and will it be any better here in Colombia? And so I'll be addressing all of these things, and I think you're going to find value. If you're a single guy that's living in or planning to move to Colombia, this is absolutely going to be very valuable information. And I will not be talking about how you can capitalize on one night stands, or serial dating, and how you can get over on some girl. And I'm not going to do that. It's not my way, and it has nothing to do with what this is going to be about. So anybody who's watched my channel for any period of time will actually already know that and be comfortable with it. So yeah, I think we're going to hit the 30. I think we'll probably have more than the 30. I think it'll be interesting, and I hope we have a good time doing it. There's a question here where you can look on chat and just see the last one. And I have heard about it. I can't speak to all the details, but it isn't about just this one person. The FARC, and particularly the ELN, have been threatening all along. As a matter of fact, to date, there are something like 670 Colombian politicians, primarily local in various towns, that have been killed by these groups. Prior to this, we're going to resume war, because there's their criminal activity, and they're trying to influence. In Ecuador, you had bombings go off, and everybody said, well, it's all Colombia. Well, I remember a couple years ago in Guayaquil, a number of judges who had drug cases before them of Ecuadorians getting bombed, getting blown up. It's not a boundary, it's not a nation thing. It's just this large criminal activity. So this kind of stuff has been going on, but the government has been on it. This actually kind of opens the door for them to be able to react. They don't have to worry about some things that they agreed to about hands off. They can now react to the 670 70 people that have been murdered, in the last few years. So it's my take, it's my opinion, based on everything that I've read, many conversations, including a couple nights ago with Colombians, things that I saw a couple decades ago, my ex-wife who was kidnapped by the FARC that I've mentioned before. So I have some knowledge, some experience of this, and a lot of research behind it. And it's just, it's how I view it. Well, I have advice for women as well. I won't. And I won't because, honestly, because I'm not a woman and I haven't gone through how to find a man, I really don't know what I would advise. I will be talking for a little bit about Colombian men, about traits they have, why Colombian women see people, foreigners, in such a positive light. Because, again, everything is generalized. I mean, it's not every person you walk up to, but generalization means the majority of this is what you're going to find. Be it 51% or 99%. There's a reason that Colombian women are attracted to foreigners. And if you're a Medellin, you say, well, it's because of the dollar. It's not. And I'm going to go into the history going back a couple generations of the mindset here. But as part of that, I will be talking about the men of Colombia as a generalization and why Colombian women prefer older men, why Colombian women are looking for such safety and security, why are they so almost sometimes violently jealous about something, and it will relate to the characteristics of men here. And what I'll basically say is, machismo is alive and well. Okay, we may be wrapped up. I'll wait to see if there's any more questions. If you can precede your question with 4 question marks, I appreciate it. It does help me kind of focus in. Are contributions required to gain access to the dating live session? No, I'm not going to require it, but I am using it as a fundraiser. There's something that I need to get, and so I am kind of selling that information. I hate to say it, but I've always been honest with you, and I'm being honest with you now. But I'm not comfortable saying you have to do it. So basically, I'm asking if you're going to contribute. If you've never contributed before, that will be a good time to do it. If you're planning on living here and this information is good for you, I promise you it's going to be very valuable to you. And so, why not? I always appreciate contributions. They go to good use. It's what keeps this channel going. And while I may be boring and my production values are bad, I know that I give you good information. I know the amount of work that I put in to try to make sure that you're getting accurate information. I don't just wing it, take it off the top of my head. I spend time researching, and I talk to local people in Ecuador. I did the same thing. I would have conversations about topics to get varying viewpoints, and then I would put it together and put it into a video. I used to keep track of, and I quit. It was just too much work. But my videos used to be about 10 minutes, and for those videos to gather information and to edit, and it would be 8 to 10 hours of work in order to put out a 10-minute video. Well, my videos are much longer, but I've also been able to speed up a lot of things now that used to take longer. So yeah, I'm going to try to get contributions because there is some software I need to buy. There's that hidden camera I really need to get my hands on. I don't have enough money to take it out of my pocket. And so there's opportunities there that money will go towards those things. But I'm not going to force you to do it. And if you watch it and you don't think it was worth anything, then that's fine. If you watch it and say, my God, that was really good, so then I'm going to send something, that's fine too. Yeah, I do plan on taking contributions on this. What happened to your poster? You need background art. It's kind of complicated. I agree with you. There should be something in the back. What I really would like to do is, and it's part of what this contribution thing is there's a piece of software that from my keyboard here, I'll be able to put up pictures or graphics of things that I'm talking about, or clips of video, maybe in this section that can be a video going on. So it's not just this talking head sitting here. But I did purchase a webcam. I took a contribution that I got. I bought a webcam and I got a great deal. This is a Logitech C920, which is tried and true, very good webcam, which is not working right now on this. It's functioning. They run about $80 new in the US. I bought this one for about $30 delivered to my house. They brought it yesterday. It's used, but you wouldn't recognize it. It opened up and looked just like a new one. Apparently he bought it, needed money, and sold it. I got it. We're all going to benefit. The colors are amazing. It frames out better. And I believe it even will allow a background, so I might be able to do something with that. So I'm aware of these things. I'm working on it, trying to do it. It's why I solicit the money. I have enough money. I solved my personal financial issue a little while back. I have enough money coming in personally to take care of everything that I need. Everything that I'm trying to do on these contributions are for things that I'm working to improve for the channel, be it software, be it hardware, be it travel. That's where these contributions are going now. I really need to get that little Osmo Pocket camera, because I run into so many times when cameras aren't allowed. I had a heck of a time smuggling that one into the hospital one that I did the other day, and even that, you see it sideways and backwards, and because I have no control over it, I had to hold it down under my jacket. And with this little Osmo thing, I can actually hold that thing upside down, but it'll stabilize and steady and function. So anyway, I don't want to get too rambling, but that's what happened to my poster. I kind of relocated, and I'm working on getting something set up that'll be a lot more interesting than just this. How do I prefer to get contributions? If you look in the information box below the video, which you might have to see on your phone or your laptop, if you're watching it on TV, you'll never see it. You don't have access to it. But you'll see the different ways. There's Patreon account, which is like a monthly subscription, $5, $10, $20, and every month it'll just kind of regenerate. That one's okay. I mean, they're all good. I appreciate them all. There's a GoFundMe, which is my second favorite, because it's so seamless. It works really well, and it doesn't try to take. They all take percentages, and it doesn't try to take a percentage. So if you donate $25, then I'm going to get almost $25, and that's kind of nice. Patreon's not horrible, but it's not the best. The very best is actually Google Pay. It's zero cost to you or me to transfer money back and forth. And that's just done by an app on your phone. You send it to an email address. I've got several different emails depending on what it's for. And so I have one that is specifically only used for Google Pay, and that's down below. So Google Pay is certainly my favorite. It's the easiest, it's instantaneous, provides good records. I like that. Second, GoFundMe. Third, Patreon. Now, the fourth one is also my first in a way. On this chat, when you do a contribution here on this live chat, like Sugar Skull did today, thank you. There's a $ at the bottom of the chat where you're typing in, and you click on that and you can send money. It's bad in one way, in that YouTube takes a pretty good bite out of it. I actually don't know what it is, but it's pretty. If it's $10, they might take $3 of it, something like that. On the other hand, it's good because every video drives a little bit of YouTube money. Not like it used to be, but drives a little bit. So this video, after being out for a month, might earn me $1.50 for that month. My videos through YouTube bring in about $30 a month now. It was 20, it's actually up to 30, more viewers. And YouTube pays only once you reach $100. Well, with these contributions that I'm getting in this chat, the real blessing of it is that they're bumping everything up to 100 or just over $100. So now I'm getting money consistently from YouTube every month, where before it was coming every 4 or 5 months. So that's definitely a plus, and that has some value to me. So while it does take a chunk out of it, for that monthly figure that comes in from YouTube, there's great value in that. So yeah, that's kind of a love-hate relationship. I hate that YouTube is so greedy, but I love that this puts everything up over that threshold and it becomes something I can rely on. Okay, any other questions? I know that some of that stuff is pretty boring to you. Some guys are interested in the nuts and bolts of how this channel operates, and others it's like, oh my God, we thought we were talking about Colombia. So, for those who feel that way, I apologize. But I try to answer whatever you ask. And I think that's the last question. Going. All right. Thank you. I have a video out Wednesday. And for those that are interested, Saturday Night Live, we will have 6 p.m. Colombian time, and then Sunday we'll have our normal coffee time. Monday I'm off to Manizales for the week. So I'll see you later.